All right, we have got a tight agenda tonight, and I want to keep us moving forward, and so I'll try. My name's Daphne Hamborg. I'm part of the Isaiah's Rural Organizing Project here in Albert Lea and Freeborn County, and I want to welcome you tonight. We are here because we are concerned about impacts of the proposed Medicare, Medicaid, and SNAP cuts, the impacts on, in other words, the social safety net. I'll map out the agenda a little bit. First of all, we start with speakers, those folks up front here who are going to share their stories. Then local officials, local elected officials will respond, and as they choose. And then we will be taking some action, and we'll explain all that more. We really appreciate you elected officials being here because you have an especially powerful role with other elected officials. And because of the concerns we're having and discussing tonight, we want to be heard in all the ways we can by all the people we can, and so thank you. But I want to take just a minute to talk about who Medicaid impacts. And I have some statistics that come from the Minnesota Department of Health, which, as far as I know, also comes from the Congressional Record, correct? Sorry, I'm used to historically Congressional Budget Office. First of all, who does Medicaid impact just here in Minnesota? There are 1.4 million people in Minnesota, 90,541 of whom in Congressional District number 1 are impacted by Medicaid. 4 out of 10 children in Minnesota, that is 37,000, little over 37,000, are impacted. 1 in 3 people with disabilities. 1 in 3 births. Half of nursing home residents. And most substance abuse and disorder treatment centers. I didn't realize how comprehensive the needs were until I read this. I thought I knew, but not really. What's at risk? The U.S. House Republicans, if I can say that, have proposed tax cuts of $3.8 trillion for corporations and wealthy Americans, which would be paid by cutting deeply into social services like Medicaid and SNAP. $715 billion in Medicaid spending. Medical assistance covers 18% of adults, 14% of seniors, and 37% of children in rural areas of Minnesota. Rural constituents will be hit the hardest, and some hospitals and nursing homes already struggling to keep the doors open will be forced to close. If the bill passes, Minnesota will need to budget $1.1 billion, a 388% increase to cover Medicaid and SNAP needs to maintain services. And it's very likely that isn't going to happen. Well, that gives you a little bit of a framework for our speakers, each one of whom is addressing a different aspect of the concerns and needs that we have. And so I will just call each speaker forward and Oh, that wasn't hard. Pass the mic around. So, I will let each person, just in a sentence or two, introduce themselves. Again, I've asked them to limit them, well, we've asked them to limit themselves to 3 minutes, and I think I already took longer than that. So, Mark. Pastor Mark Boersma.
Mark Boersma. I serve 2 congregations in Albert Lea, Ascension and Salem, but I'm far better known as the spouse of Mary Boersma, manager of the Albert Lea Seed House. Daphne said you'd be hearing folks share their stories. I'm ripping one off from someone else. In response to a question, who is my neighbor? Jesus told a story. A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell into the hands of robbers, who stripped him, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. Now, by chance, a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So, likewise, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, while traveling, came near him. And when he saw him, he was moved with pity. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, having poured oil and wine on them. Then he put him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day, he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said, "Take care of him. And when I come back, I will repay you whatever more you spend." Which of these 3, do you think, was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? He said, "The one who showed him mercy." Jesus said to him, "Go and do likewise." Thank you.
Thanks, Pastor Boersma. Our next speaker is Michaela Hansen.
I'm right here. I can.
Oh, okay. I guess we're okay.
Either's fine.
You have to hold it real close.
You'd have thought holding the mic would have occurred to me as a disabled person before this moment right now, but did not. You'll have to forgive me from reading directly from my phone. They told us to stick to 3 minutes, so sticking directly to my notes is the best way for me to make that happen. I've been asked to speak about Medicaid as an adult who does not qualify for disability because of when I became disabled. I was too old to go into some programs and too young to go into others, so I'm an adult, and because of the way Minnesota runs Medicaid, I'm able to be part of Medicaid that they Minnesota allocates extra money to, so that people like me who would normally fall through the cracks do not. I'm here to talk about what's at stake for me personally and the challenges that already exist in Medicaid that are only going to get worse. So if at some point during my speaking you think, she's complaining a lot about this program that she really wants to keep, that's why. In 2015, I was diagnosed with something called ankylosing spondylitis, or AS as I'll continue to refer to it. AS is a type of inflammatory arthritis that causes widespread joint and ligament inflammation. In severe cases like mine, the vertebrae in your spine, in response to the severe inflammation, the inflammation causes bone growth, and the vertebrae in your spine begin to fuse together, as well as different bones in your pelvis. In the worst cases of AS, inflammation causes tears in your aorta, often before they are noticed. Most people who experience this AS complication will die before they get anywhere near a hospital. AS is incredibly painful. When my AS is treated and my pain is as managed as it can be, I'm able to go about my life as a homeschooling mom of 3 from my power chair. I'm very grateful to be able to get Medicaid. It's made it possible for me to access the expensive medication that keeps AS from attacking my spine, joints, and aorta unchecked. However, Medicaid limits the amount of this medication that it will cover per month. An acquaintance of mine with similar disease progression but private insurance is still able to walk and even hike. Their insurance pays for them to have doses 3 times per week, whereas mine allows only 2 per month. If I was able to take this medication as often as my doctors recommend it, my life and pain levels would be markedly different, and I would very likely be sitting in a regular chair, like everyone else next to me. In 2016, my husband and I learned of a surgery that would have helped me retain my ability to walk, albeit with a cane. Medicaid denied the surgery. They called it experimental based on a study from 1995. I tried in vain to send them all of the updated studies our surgical team provided to me, and they claimed that since it was an experimental surgery, I was not entitled to a peer-to-peer review where a doctor within the insurance company listens to my surgical team explain why this particular surgery was critical. They did this 6 times before we gave up. The surgery would have cost $100,000. Hold on to that dollar. It's going to matter a lot, that dollar figure. It's going to matter a lot in a moment. When I was initially diagnosed, I needed a cane to get around, then crutches as the disease progressed, then a manual wheelchair, and in 2019, as my shoulders began to become affected, my medical team and I moved forward with the process of getting a power wheelchair. The process took almost 2 years. I lost count of how many appointments we had to go to with occupational and physical therapy, family medicine, and I think my DME, my durable medical equipment supplier, might still be on my speed dial. In spring of 2022, I would finally receive my chair and some long-awaited independence. My first power chair was $80,000. It is unthinkable that they would have denied a surgery that would have helped avoid my need for a new wheelchair every 5 years. Humanity aside, the math was even in my favor. Insurance companies like Medicaid, and they're really none of them are fantastic, will deny anything they can, hoping you will no longer be part of their program before they have to clean up the mess they made from their previous denial. With the budget cuts Medicaid will face, this stands to only become much, much worse. I in no way want to come across as ungrateful or overtly critical. I want to illustrate how difficult the system already is to navigate and how much more difficult it will become if this budget bill passes. While I had hoped to spend 2025 advocating to improve Minnesota Medicaid for all of the Minnesotans who are able to take advantage of its benefits, I'm still incredibly grateful for it. Having access to my AS medication alleviates a great deal of my pain as well as helping to protect my heart. My kids really wanted to be here tonight to help cheer on their mom. Our oldest teenager even went with the tactic of trying to annoy mom into agreeing to let them attend tonight. But instead they're at home because I wanted to be very candid. Because the truth about what could happen to me if I lose Medicaid is something that we want to keep from them. A couple of weeks ago, I approached my medical team to find out what was actually at stake here if I can no longer take the medication that I need. And it's quite grim. The likelihood of having the fatal cardiac complications I mentioned a couple of minutes ago stands to an increase up to 30%. Losing Medicaid could truly cost me my life. Please consider doing whatever you can and working with this group to do whatever we can to help alleviate these cuts. I'm not the only Minnesotan who has this much to lose. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michaela. And now, Pastor Joel Erickson.
Well, I am, this is about my brother who has Alzheimer's. He's been institutionalized since 2016. And presently he's at Woodlands, diagnosed with Alzheimer's. He was in assisted living for a while, for about a couple years here at St. John's. And then he fell and broke his hip and ended up being in a wheelchair and then was sent over to Woodlands, the skilled care, confined to a wheelchair. and he required skilled care. Now, private pay cost at Woodlands for 1 month for him is $11,200. How many people do you know can afford that kind of price on a monthly basis? Well, his pension and Social Security pays about 1/3 of it. And Medicaid makes up the difference. So you can do the math there if you want. If cuts in Medicaid mean no longer making up the difference, where would my brother go? I'm in a 1-bedroom apartment. My wife passed away 2 years ago. I have multiple myeloma, and I have prostate cancer. Both are in remission of sorts. So my resources, I mean, I'm fine, but how would I deal with him? He's always in a wheelchair, and when they give a shower, they have a little lift. They lift him up and put him in the whole 9 yards. I wouldn't have that. So, half of the residents at Woodlands are receiving Medicaid. I just talked to a gal there today. So what happens to St. John's if half of the residents are gone? The whole long-term care system collapses based on that. I don't know how St. John's would survive if the Medicaid reimbursements were not there. And this is just not St. John's, but all long-term, all over Minnesota, in the country. So, for the happy news, it's nothing short of a disaster. And that's basically it. Can't say any more than that. I hope to God this doesn't happen. So, yeah.
Thank you, Joel. Angie Hansen.
And sorry, Daphne, I might go slightly over my 3 minutes. I know I'm normally a rule follower, so my apologies. Hello, my name is Angie Hansen, and I'm a special education teacher. I teach students in grade kindergarten through 6th grade with disabilities. Most of my students, or all of my students, stay in my room most of the day, and then they attend with their peers for like lunch, recess, all the special fun activities, of course, and specialists, which is PE, tech, music, and art. I have 9 students in my class, and I have 4 paraprofessionals. That just shows kind of how the needs in my classroom. My paraprofessionals assist my students. They supervise many students in their grade level classes, recess and lunch, and they work with students on learning activities throughout the day. The paraprofessionals are also trained as personal care attendants. They help with bathrooming, which can be from toilet training, changing pull-ups and diapers, to just helping with dressing and things like that, and washing hands. They also help some of my students with eating, and they help with other self-cares. Right now, we are able to bill, the schools are able to bill Medicaid for the paraprofessional time that's spent with the personal care attendant services. So like that time, they can bill Medicaid. Most of my students need speech language therapy. One of my 1st graders doesn't talk much at all, and he has a device. He has recently learned how to say hi and bye verbally, so it's like super exciting anytime he talks. And some of my other students have communication devices, or they just need help with articulation so they can be understood. Many of my students need occupational therapy services, and that is fine motor skills so they can draw, write, cut, do things like that. And most of my students get that. And some of my students get physical therapy services, and that's like to help them learn to walk up and down stairs and navigate the classroom, and like their gross motor skills. And then also adapted PE, which helps them learn skills like throwing, jumping, different things so that they can participate with their peers in PE class. I have one student who also has a hearing impairment, and she gets services with the deaf and hard of hearing teacher as well. There are other services as well. These are the services that my students get. And these are services that the schools are required by law to provide because they were deemed necessary on their evaluations and their individualized education plans. And students need them to learn and be successful in the school setting. Right now, schools are able to bill Medicaid for these services. I was asked what would happen if Medicaid went away. Honestly, I don't know, but I'm really worried. As I mentioned, schools are required to provide these services and meet the students' needs, and they should provide these services. But without Medicaid, schools will have less money, will have to cut somewhere. I don't know where they would cut. My guess is they would cut paraprofessionals and teachers. Most of my students cannot learn independently. They need very small groups and one-on-one instruction. So if my program had fewer paraprofessionals, my classroom would basically be chaos. That was the first thing that came out of my mouth when someone asked what would happen. I don't know. Chaos? And there would be much, much less learning happening. The same would be true if there were less teachers. That would mean my class size of 9 students would be much greater, and they would still get less individualized instruction. My students are behind their peers, and the skills they learn will help them be more independent adults. So everything they learn in my classroom and keeping going throughout their years is going to help them be more independent, successful, and happy adults. So it could depend that if they're in a group home or they're in a semi-independent living situation. It might depend if they're in a sheltered workshop for work, or they just get a little bit of help at their work site, or they're independent workers at a job. So, with budget cuts, my students will not be able to meet their potentials, point blank. And then if you think about it, paying less now will result in more costs later. Because if my students don't learn the skills and they need more help, it will cost more later. But more important, of course, my students will not live as happy or independent lives.
Iracema Hernandez.
Hello everyone, my name is Iracema Hernandez. I work for Medicare Community Action. Oh, sorry. Oh, I have a loud voice, I don't want to use that, so try. So I'm touching something else than Medicaid. In this bill, there is a community grant that helps the community action center like SimCAT support our office, our outreach office. So I'm going to give you some numbers of what we help community members here in Freeborn County. So we help 2,748 community members a year with our office referrals, providing them with referrals, resources, a lot of things we do, a lot of things for the community. We also provide 89 households with back rent and 21 households with car repair, just for 1 year. This is just 1 year mark. Another program that this bill wants to cut is energy assistance, which is like home heating for the winter time. We serve 850 community members in Freeborn, regular grants, and 169 crisis grants. So people that need a little bit extra for the winter heating. So this is how many people would be affected if we got those funding cut. So it means no more SimCAT Community Outreach Center for Freeborn County. So where are all those people gonna go for assistance? Besides Medicaid getting cut, home heating, that's very important for the winter time in Minnesota. So that's another additional problem going on. That's what I have to share. Mine is very short and sweet.
Thank you, Iracema and Cindy Gilbert.
My name is Cindy Gilbert, and I retired last year from Mayo as a physician assistant practicing urgent care medicine for 19 years. I still follow medical things very closely, and a number of the things that showed up in this bill caused me a great amount of concern. What I'm going to look at is from the business end of things and the clinician end of things. The House of Representatives and Senate bills both increase the risk of financial loss delivering health care to rural communities. 3 different healthcare organizations told this community some of the pitfalls of trying to provide primary care here. One of them was the fact that we are heavy on Medicaid and Medicare reimbursement, and the other one was recruitment of clinicians and also of nursing staff. Mayo told us this when they moved services from here to Austin. Mercy One told us this when they pulled out. Ironically, they're owned by a $19 billion medical corporation called Trinity, who was not willing to absorb the losses of doing primary care here. And United Health District didn't even get started for many of the same reasons. So that makes me worried, okay, when they're doing something that's going to increase the financial risk of providing this basic care here. On June 12th, 4 U.S. senators sent a letter to the Speaker of the House, the Senate Majority Leader, and the President detailing information about 338 rural hospitals that are uniquely at risk of financial distress, possible closure, and service reductions because of the cuts in the House bill. 2 of them were in Minnesota, so of course I scrambled to download the list so I could take a look at it. And one of them is in this congressional district close by. It wasn't Austin, but it was enough to really raise my eyebrows, thinking this is a little close to home. And now the Senate bill has even more drastic cuts and more hospitals are at risk. Senator Klobuchar was actually on national news today talking about that number's probably doubled and what the risk is to rural communities. Part of our legislative strategy here in Minnesota, if you were following along at the end of the legislature passing everything, is they were going to apply for a directed payment program to help boost our federal payments. But the amount of time to do it was short, and they had to get the application in. But in the meantime, the House version of the budget prohibits these new programs, and now the Senate bill looks like it will have cuts, making it less of a solution to help increase our Medicaid reimbursement in this state. Also, the workload of primary care clinicians cannot absorb the new technical provisions. There is a lot of new technical things in this bill that requires providers to do more frequent Medicaid eligibility reviews, more documentation with additional hours of paperwork, and this reduces the availability of care appointments for other patients. Never mind, the rest of the workload that they have to deal with. Many healthcare providers responded to a request by senators on the Health Committee to answer questions about what this would do if they had to do more work to make people get their benefits. So family medicine doctors and pediatricians are the lowest paid medical specialties. The reimbursement is lower for the care they deliver, and the margins are substantially smaller. Even private payers do not pay the entire cost of care. It was interesting that I went on to the medical systems, it's called Transparency in Clinical Charges, to look at the differences throughout the state of what a basic office visit is and who pays what. And even private insurance doesn't cover the cost of the clinic visit. And then you add in Medicare being less, and Medicaid even less, and Medicare Advantage less than that. So already, systems are not doing well in the primary care world, having any financial gain from any of this. But the other thing is the administrative burden of providing care is already extremely high and an extreme jobs dissatisfier. It's really hard to recruit people into pediatrics and family medicine. The days are long, the workload is large. They estimate that you spend 40% of your time in front of the patient and 60% of the time doing the administrative burden. We have a joke in medicine that's called pajama time. It's the 1 to 2 hours every night that people spend taking care of the work they didn't get done at the clinic during the day. Because they put their kids to bed, they put their pajamas on, and then they start finishing up. And so, the irony of all this is in this state, 78% of Medicaid adults are already working. 47% full-time and 31% part-time. So really, where is the gain if they're already working of, looking at their eligibility? So it's a dismal situation when people are uninsured. They wait until it's a crisis, and then the problem is a lot more expensive, not only to them personally, but also to the healthcare system, as these are write-offs then. And so I guess that's my question back, is what happens? What happens to rural healthcare? We already know that we have trouble here. People are hanging on, but still, it's like, what happens if it's still not enough here? It's like, where do people get care?
Thank you very much. We have one more speaker, and she is Erin Haig from the United Way. And you gonna come around? Okay.
Hello, I'm really flying by the seat of my pants here because until about half an hour ago I was at the pantry. We did not close tonight because of the weather, because we had shoppers that walked in the middle of a tornado siren to come to our food pantry. So we decided that the best course of action was to stay open and keep everybody inside and get everybody inside as soon as possible. So 1 in 4 families in Minnesota are facing food insecurity. And one of the challenges that we are seeing with SNAP benefits right now is that we anticipate that we are going to see a lot more people come through our doors. Food pantries are already stretched to the max. We cannot serve the need of food insecurity without support from SNAP. Only 50% of our shoppers right now are on SNAP benefits. That's according to the Minnesota statewide survey. If we see major cuts, then we're going to see that numbers go much higher. And we just simply do not have the resources to support that in our community and across the state. Like I said, I'm flying by the seat of the pants, I'm just talking. We also are seeing a record number of new shoppers. In May alone, we had 69 new shoppers. We're only open 2 days a week. 69 new people walk through our doors that have faith, and this is before some of these cuts are taking effect. Sometimes they're seasonal. They're not necessarily always taking, only about 35% of our shoppers shop more than once a month. We have been offering twice a month visits. We had to drop that down to once a month visits in May. Just this morning, we have negotiated where we're kind of tentatively going back up to twice a month visits. So we announced that on the radio this morning, so starting in July, so we're able to get some of that back. But we are seeing a reduction in the quality of food that we're able to get, the variety of food that we're able to get, and it just looks very different in our pantry from what it was before. Our pantry is a fixture. The majority of our shoppers are working. They're working 1 or more jobs. They are coming non-traditional hours. They are showing up at 5:45, right before we close at 6 o'clock. They're making that 5:45 appointment because they're getting off work at 5:30, and they're hoofing it across town to get there to be able to shop for with their family. They're bringing in their children. They're bringing, we have seniors on a fixed income. You know, they have it down to a schedule. You know, I have one senior who makes a shopping list, and if she gets what she needs, then she yells, bingo. We have a veteran that comes in and sings God Bless America to us every other week. You know, his twice a week visit, his wife calls, and he's in his 90s, and he's served our country. He's founded cancer auctions, he's done lots of fundraisers for our community, but he's coming to us for support, and we want to be able to give back. But this is where SNAP benefits are so incredibly important to provide that safety net so that we can provide the next layer of safety net. And without that, it's really going to become even more a challenge. Thank you.
Erin, if that's flying by the seat of your pants, I want to hear you sometime when you're prepared.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank all of you speakers, first of all, for being here, because it isn't necessarily easy even though you know the individual stories well, to get in front of a group largely of strangers and lay out really significant parts of your life and your struggles. And then to speak for others as well and tell a story, different kinds of stories. I want to thank you all for being here too. Now, we're not done, but I'm getting to be done. So I really want to thank you because we did not have any idea how many would come, and we certainly did not expect tornado warnings an hour or so beforehand. So, and I won't point anybody out, but there's 2 people here from Heartland, and as you know, there was a tornado that just visited Heartland, and which reminded me of the one a few years ago that was so devastating. So anyhow, so thanks to them for being here too. But we especially want to thank our local elected officials, as they are termed, because it is so important that the stories you share are heard by all of us, but especially by those who, quite frankly, have some extra power. So thank you all. And I will now turn it over to Bev and Deb. They can introduce themselves. Whoops, Joe. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, is that loud enough? Yes. Okay, my name is Bev Nolan. Is that good? Yeah. Okay, thank you. My name is Bev Nolan. Jerry and I live in Hayward, and I'm a retired nursing home social worker, 19 and a half years at Good Sam and 5 at St. John's. So when Joel talks about his story, I definitely understand what he's talking about. What can we do? What can we do about what we are up against? Olmsted County and some of the other municipalities across the county are making statements and are willing to support a resolution in opposition to social safety net cuts. And I would ask you officials, is that something that you would support?